the 6th episode in my series on Tārābala. You can find links to the other 5 episodes in the description. In this episode, we will explore the 3rd of the 5 Tārābala pairs, which is called impending separation or the divorced. In episode 1, we learned what the 9 Tārābala are and that they're determined by how many nakshatras separate 2 points. Now, in this episode, to grasp the basic physics behind the divorce pair, let's imagine the sun is in Krittika and the moon is in Mrigashirsha. From this sun to this moon, we would count 3 nakshatra. And therefore, we would use the 3rd Tārābala, which is Vipat. And that means falling apart in the sense of separating. So that would mean that the moon's attitude towards the sun is that it wants a divorce. It wants to separate and increase its distance from the sun. But if we count from the moon to the sun, we will count 8. And that is the Tārābala called Mitra, which means friendship or togetherness. So this means that the sun wants to maintain togetherness and friendship with the moon, but that's going to be a struggle because the moon wants just the opposite. This is just an example here. This dynamic will arise for any planets in any nakshatra that are separated by 1 nakshatra. So whenever you see this, or whenever you see one planet giving friendly Mitra Tārābala to another, then you know that it will be difficult because the other planet will always be giving the unfriendly Vipat Tārābala back. And so we call this the Vipat-mitra pair, which we can describe in English as unreciprocated love or the divorce struggle. One partner wants to separate and the other one doesn't. How would you interpret this situation in a chart? You interpret it exactly as the name suggests. It's unreciprocated love. It's a divorce struggle. So the planet that's giving Mitra Tārābala, which is the sun in this example, will be trying really hard to make the other planet in the pair fall back in love with it or like it or embrace it or accept it. Or maybe you can say desperately trying to hold the relationship together and prevent it from drifting further apart. But the planet that's giving the Vipat Tārābala, which is the moon in this example, is callous to those efforts. It finds what the sun is offering to be boring, old, or even tiring and burdensome. It doesn't want to have anything else to do with that. It wants to get away from all of that and find the freedom to explore new things. So let's look at 2 actual examples of this divorce pair and put this interpretive idea into practice. So let's take the example of Jupiter in Citra while the Ascendant is in Uttara-Ashadha. So if we go from Jupiter to the Ascendant, we'll count 8 nakshatra. So we'll come to the conclusion that the Ascendant is Mitra to Jupiter. The Ascendant is being friendly to Jupiter. But if we count from the Ascendant to Jupiter, which we would have to follow the natural order of the nakshatras, you can't go in reverse. So we would have to go all the way around the wheel. And every time we get to 9, we restart at 1. Then we'll find the equivalent of 3 nakshatra to Jupiter from the Ascendant. So we will deduce that Jupiter is being unfriendly and trying to divorce the Ascendant. This observation lets us kind of write a short phrase that's very important. The phrase would be something like, the Ascendant loves Jupiter, but Jupiter is tired of the Ascendant. Now that's the phrase that will blossom into all the interpretations. And to get it to blossom, all you really have to do is just calmly visualize it. And instead of using the names of the planets, put in something important that the planet symbolizes. You sit there calmly and you work with that until the first thing really clicks and rings a bell. So for example, you could tell this person, your learning and your knowledge is bored by tangible, practical things. But your day-to-day realities of life are not going to let go. They're not going to let themselves be separated from philosophy, religion, and so forth. So with relatively little effort, you will get very, very accurate and nuanced interpretations just emerging out of this simple phrase. Let's take a look at one more example. Let's have Saturn in Krittika and Mercury in Magha. So count from Saturn to Mercury and you get 8 nakshatra. So it's Mercury who's being friendly, mitra, to Saturn. But if you count from Mercury to Saturn, and again, make sure you follow the natural order of the nakshatras and restart every time you pass 9, then you'll find out that Saturn is the equivalent of 3 nakshatras from Mercury. So Saturn has Vipat-Tārābala. It's being unfriendly and trying to divorce Mercury. Now that we've sorted that out, that's the only really kind of counting or mathematical thing we need to do. Then from that simple information, we can derive this kind of phrase. Mercury loves Saturn, but Saturn is tired of Mercury. And then to make that phrase blossom and give us very specific interpretations, we just let it happen by putting in the symbolisms of Mercury and Saturn until we find the one that really, really describes what we're looking for. And you'll find multiple usually. So for example, you can tell this person your work ethic is not tempted at all by relaxation and play. Quite the contrary. It's quite bored of relaxation and play. You find relaxation and play in your work ethic. But your communication style, Mercury, it refuses to let go of Saturn. It refuses to let go of being critical, blunt, and negative. Even when it's obvious that such a method does not favor mercurial things, does not favor, for example, friendship or communication. So as you can see, the nakshatra Tārābala pairs are extremely generous in revealing very sophisticated and incredibly accurate interpretations with relatively little need for technical astrological skill. And what I've shown in this video is just scratching the surface. To explore this and all the other Tārābala pairs in relation to your chart, you can order my report called Star Strength, and the link to it is in the description below.